Hey everyone, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am your host, Jay Scherr, and I am super excited today. I have got a fantastic guest in the studio with me today. But before I introduce her, I'm going to start off with a quote from my man, David Goggins. The most difficult part of the training is training your mind. You build calluses on your feet to endure the road. You build calluses on your mind to endure the pain. There's only one way to do that. You have to get out there and run. Well, my guest today is a jeweler and business owner, a world traveler, a lifelong yoga student, and a passionate ultra runner. Born and raised in Long Island, New York, she's always been driven by an insatiable curiosity for both design and the world around her. After earning her bachelor's degree in graphic design from Flagler College, she set off for the Himalayas to teach English to Tibetan refugee monks, an experience that sparked a decade-long exploration of the globe while working remotely in graphic design. Well, a lot has changed since then. We've got a lot to talk about today. Please welcome the owner of Village Jewelry in European Village, Julie Farina. Julie, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, it is my pleasure. So I know I just barely scratched the surface on that introduction. Is there anything that I didn't mention that you think is important to bring up at this point?
I think you introduced me in a fantastic way. And yeah, everything you said is correct. And after that experience teaching English to the Tibetan monks, that really had me curious about seeing everything that I could possibly see in all of the time that I had.
I love that. So couple of things that I want to explore here. First, I would love to find out from you who has been probably one of the top mentors for you in your life up to this point. And when you share that with us, I'd also like you to share the impact of that person on you personally.
Oh gosh. Well, that would be my mom.
Okay.
And it's, emotional for me to talk about because she did pass away a few years ago, but she has been my mentor in business and in just the way that I see the world. She was such a kind person. She really never had anything bad to say about anyone. She always told me to tell the truth and to be honest, and I just respect her so much.
What was your mom's name?
Edith.
Edith. And so, mentor in business, kind hearted, lots of valuable lessons there, obviously, throughout your life.
Yes.
What is one of the most valuable lessons that you learned from her that you still carry with you today?
Really, like she would always say, honesty is the best policy. And if I'm ever in a situation where I don't know what to do, I just tell the truth.
So, your mom passed away from cancer,
Yes.
and going through that obviously had to be just a very, very difficult situation. Do you have siblings? Or are you an only child? Or
I have a younger brother.
younger brother?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as your mom was going through this, was she sharing anything in particular with you? Any other important details about living life and things along those lines, as you recall?
Well, unfortunately, right after she was diagnosed, she went downhill very, very quickly. Like she lost really her voice. Like she couldn't speak. So I guess something was wrong with her voice box. She couldn't hear anymore. So I really, we really couldn't talk much in those 8 months that she was still alive, but just witnessing how strong she was during the entire sickness
Yeah.
was extremely inspiring. And during my ultras, I remember that and like all of the pain that she endured. If she could endure that, I can endure running a little longer.
So when you are running, is your mom typically top of mind as you think about going through the pain that you experience when you're out there and what you're physically dealing with and mentally dealing with, obviously?
So when you're running that far, it's really a whirlwind of emotions. So she's constantly coming up in like the cycle of emotions that I'm feeling. And pretty much every long distance that I've run, I've seen her in some form, whether it be a butterfly or a cactus or a different type of animal. I feel like she's always there.
Yeah. So tell me about your dad. So when I asked you what the one of the most valuable lessons was that you took away from your mom, what about your father? Same question in regards to dad.
So, my dad has always been a very, I would say, stable person, watching him just go to work every day my entire life. Um, he's shown me how to show up for work every single day, regardless of what's going on in life.
So work ethic.
Work ethic,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right. And what is your dad's name?
Dan.
Dan. Okay. So I asked you before we started recording what your dad's doing these days, and you
Hmm.
said he's traveling the world. So
Yes.
that's how he spends his and invests his time and learning about different cultures and just being a man of the world.
Yes. Maybe he saw me doing that and was interested to do it himself after he retired.
I love that. So you were an inspiration there.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I'll ask him.
That is too good. All right. So take me back to when you were a young child. Kind of describe for us what life was like for you. I want to get a kind of a picture of what type of person you were back in your early years.
I had a very nice, simple childhood before social media and the internet.
Okay.
So, I spent my time riding my bike until 9 p.m. and just exploring and being a regular kid. Trick or treating was a huge thing growing up, and I just think everything was pretty nice and normal.
What was your favorite costume?
Um, let's see. Well, I was born the day before Halloween, so I've always liked spooky Halloween-ish stuff,
Yeah.
scary stuff, so probably something scary,
Okay.
but I can't remember.
Okay. All right. And when you were in your earlier years, had you had any type of vision for what you wanted to do in life or kind of what you thought you were going to be one day?
I thought I was going to be a fashion designer.
Yeah,
So, jewelry designer, pretty close.
absolutely. Okay. So, what was one of the most difficult experiences that you had in your youth that you had to work through and that you can remember pretty, pretty intently today?
I had a pretty difficult time in high school. I think that, like a lot of teens do, I felt pretty awkward, which is normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Awkward in what way?
everything, braces, acne, like just
Yeah.
everything that a young teenage girl would experience. Um, I had that tenfold, I feel like. I just felt very awkward in high school.
Tell me how confident you were
In high school,
in high school and as a young person.
not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Yes, not at all.
So, at what point did you start to build confidence
Hmm.
and realize that you're okay?
I started building confidence as soon as I took that first trip to India and I stepped off the plane terrified. And I remember I cried. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But that's when the confidence really started, when I was presented with all these difficult situations as a solo female traveler and working through them. Every one of those experiences built that confidence.
Why did you take that trip?
Well, after I graduated college with the degree in graphic design,
Hmm.
I knew right away that sitting in an office doing graphic design was not something that I wanted to do at all.
Okay.
So I never uh, got that job in an office because that's not what I wanted.
Hmm.
I wanted to do something different, and I always wanted to travel.
So tell me how that trip came to be then. You decided I definitely don't want to sit in an office. I want to travel, and that's something of interest to me. And did you just go talk to a travel agent, or you looked online and
I
booked a trip,
I
or
looked online and I booked a trip.
okay.
Hmm.
And that was the place you picked.
A one-way ticket,
Okay.
yes.
A one-way ticket.
A one-way ticket.
Okay. Had you thought about actually living there, or you just didn't know what you were going to experience and you were just going to leave it open-ended?
Open-ended. Yeah,
Open-ended.
open-ended.
Okay. Amazing. So you get off, you're on a very long flight.
Yes.
You get off that plane and you land in an area of the world that you've never been before. You're solo at this point and you're terrified.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do next?
Well, I had to take another short flight up to the Himalayas from Delhi.
Hmm.
I was really, really hungry and I didn't know where to get food. I was so like disoriented from traveling for so long and I was probably crying. And these two like dreadlocked barefoot hippies walked up to me and asked me if I was hungry. And I said yes. And they pulled these Tibetan dumplings out of their pocket called momos
Okay.
and gave them to me. And like they probably had lint on them, but I ate it. So that's how it started.
Wow. That's amazing. So I love it that humanity prevails no matter where you are, right? People are there to help out when and where they can and how they can.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing. So you taught English to Tibetan refugee monks before you decided to go to India. Had you already had that lined up, or you figured that out once you arrived?
Figured it out once I arrived. I mean, teaching English in Asia is pretty common in a lot of countries. So,
Okay.
hmm
Okay. Very interesting. And what was one of the most unusual experiences that you had on that first trip that just opened your eyes to life and how it may not always go as you were planning?
um, well, do you want a short story or a longer story?
So I would love to hear the longer story. Of course, we need to, try to compress it to a degree. But why don't we do this? Because I do want to explore this without having to take a break. So why don't we do this, since we are up against our break? Why don't we go ahead and do that now? And then when we come back, we'll talk more about that. So, my friends, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. Don't you go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, we're back. And again, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. And I am in the studio today with my very special guest, Julie Farina. Julie, What a great conversation we're having so far. We're going to continue that conversation right now. So before we took the break, we were, talking about some of your early life, and we were talking about your mother and your father, some lessons that you had learned from them, a trip that you took after you graduated from college, and this was really a first big world trip for you, and you were in India, and it was terrifying, right? You're solo and you're experiencing some of these, something new for the very first time. So before we took the break, I asked you what was one of the most, challenging experiences that you had while you were there, something that just opened your eyes to, to the world and the way that things can not always go as we had intended. So you were about to share a story. Let's continue on. So tell me what transpired when you were over there.
All right. So this was the same trip that we're discussing, except now at this point I'm in Thailand.
Okay.
And I was robbed. And so they took all of my money, my credit cards, and I had my passport with me, and I had a bus ticket to go to Cambodia. And so I didn't have any money. I just had my bus ticket and my passport. It was a 48-hour bus. I'm like, I'm just going to try to go with no money, and let's see if I can get there. And it was really, really an excruciating 48 hours with no food or water on this like horrible rickety bus. Like at one point I wasn't sleeping. I was trying to sleep in the aisle of the bus on the floor. It was terrible. There were animals on the bus getting on and off. It was just crazy. So when I finally got to the border crossing of Thailand and Cambodia, a horrible place from what I remember called Poi Pet, I guess these scammers were waiting, and they pretty much like pulled me off the bus. They knew I was alone somehow, and they said, we need to take your passport and we're going to like fix up your visa. Well, they took my passport. They put me in a van surrounded by a bunch of men with like assault weapons and drove me to this like dump of a hotel and said, you can't get your passport back until you give us, let's just say $500. I don't remember the amount.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I promise you, like, I don't have $500. I don't have any money. They're like, you're going to get it to us somehow. So I had to contact my parents and I had to beg them to wire me money. But it was a big problem because this was like before the internet in Asia. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like simple. You couldn't like get it to your phone. So like they would like come pick me up, these like guys with the guns, and like try to take me to the bank every day. I was trying to get the money from my parents, but it just wasn't working. So in total, I was stuck in that hotel. They wouldn't let me leave for 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrifying because I was young. So I felt like a kid back then. And, you know, it was scary.
Wow, what a horrible situation. So when you were pulled off of this bus, were you the only one that was pulled off of this bus?
I was the only one. Everyone else was traveling with someone else. I was the only one by myself, so I think that's what happened.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, mm-hmm. no one tried to intervene or to stop this from happening?
These scammers were dressed up as border guards, and they weren't. So I guess everyone else just thought they were, like, taking me somewhere to help me, like, with the paperwork.
I see. Okay. So through that experience, so you're there, you're being held in this dump of a hotel with these individuals for a week. The money is finally transferred, and once they had the money, did they immediately let you go, or were they then saying, well, we need more, or were they trying to?
They let me go.
Okay, they let you go.
They let me go.
Are you in the middle? I mean, you mentioned where you were, kind of Thailand, Cambodia. how did you get from there to where you needed to go next? You have no money.
So my parents wired me more money, and I still hear about this.
Do you?
Yes. Yeah.
Your dad brings it up from time to time.
It was mostly my mom,
Okay.
but yeah, so this is an infamous story.
Yeah. Oh, that is so interesting. So tell me what did you take away from that whole terrible experience?
Unfortunately, I learned to be less trusting and never hand over your passport unless you're like 100% sure. Like your passport is your like lifeline.
Yeah. Wow. That's an incredible one. Okay. So tell me how you transition into ultra running, because I know that maybe up to this point, maybe even a little bit further, yoga was a huge part
hmm
of your life and a huge passion of yours. When does running come into the story for you?
Yeah, so I've been a dedicated yoga practitioner for many years, but when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, I moved into my parents' house to take care of her.
Mm,
And I found that, and it was actually around the time of COVID, so the yoga studios were closed.
okay.
And I had built like a little like yoga area in my house in St. Augustine where I could just have peace and quiet. But now moving into my parents' house when there was like so much, I don't want to say drama, but like sadness,
Sure.
I couldn't like find a quiet space to do my practice. So instead, I put on blaring music and I would go out and go running. So that's how I kind of started getting into the running. And around that same time, I started training for the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is a 110-mile loop around the Mont Blanc mountain. It goes through France, Italy, and Switzerland. And I was running with a weighted vest, and I would do like 3 miles, and I'd be like dead. It was so hard. But I actually ended up doing the Tour de Mont Blanc loop at the same week that the most prestigious ultra marathon in the world takes place, called Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc. And I
Okay.
didn't know what ultra running was. And I checked into my hotel, and they were putting up that like, start finish blimp. And I'm
Right.
like, what the heck is this blocking my view? This is BS. So I go down to the desk and I'm like, what's that? They're like, oh, it's just this little race that happens every year. I'm like, oh,
Little.
interesting. And it just so happens that I finished my loop and got back to the center of the town called Chamonix, where the race starts and ends, at the same time as the UTMB was ending at a time called Golden Hour, when the final finishers are coming in.
Okay.
And what I witnessed there changed my life. Like seeing these runners coming in after doing what I did in, I don't know, a week. They do it in, I think they have a 48-hour cutoff, and just seeing their faces, it was an out of body experience. I was crying. I'm like, this is awesome. As soon as I got back to Palm Coast, I'm like, I had in my head, I want to be an ultra runner, but I didn't really tell anyone because that sounds crazy. I'm like, I'm just going to sign up for a half marathon right away. Started training. A few months later, I signed up for a full marathon. I actually did another full marathon a few weeks after that.
Mm.
And then the 50K, 100K, now 100 miles. And the run across England, that was pretty epic.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that run across England, 202 miles you ran solo across northern England. Took 12 days for that run. And then you just recently finished it was a 100-mile desert survival adventure that went through the Sonora Desert. Now that one you did in 28 hours and 50 minutes, if
Yes,
I'm not mistaken.
correct. That was last week.
That was last week. So
My toes are still recovering.
I'll bet. So you and I were corresponding with one another as you had
Yes.
just returned from that, and you're trying to recover and are still
Yes.
recovering, obviously. So I read a quote by David Goggins at the
Hmm.
beginning of the episode. Tell me a little bit about the mental side of ultra running for you. How are you forging a strong mindset to be able to push yourself through these incredible challenges that you put yourself into?
I honestly like didn't even realize how strong I was until I started completing these distances.
Hmm.
Like I didn't know that it was possible. Like I said, I was struggling running 3 miles a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So every challenge that I complete, just like we discussed in the beginning, builds so much confidence and makes me feel like I can do anything. And the mental side of it is, a huge component because even if you're just the the physically you're the strongest on earth, if you don't have that mindset to keep pushing forward, I don't think you'd be able to complete it 100-mile ultra. It was very mental.
When you're planning a one of these adventures, one of these physically demanding adventures, do you visualize yourself? Do you visualize the run and visualize yourself starting and what you're going to be like during the run and then finishing the run? Is
Yes.
visualization a part of the
Yes,
process?
definitely. That is one of the tactics that I implement when I'm preparing for the race.
Hmm.
I envision myself crossing the line strong.
Okay.
It usually happens, sometimes it doesn't. But yes.
Excellent. If the results of whatever you're doing don't match your expectation for the thing, how do you handle that?
I take it as a learning experience.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I just kind of dissect everything that went wrong
Hmm.
and try to correct it the next time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. I think it's incredible in and of itself that you finish, right? That you finish the thing that you said you were going to do, and then that you can look back and fine tune those areas
Mhm.
that you know you can improve upon. I love
Mhm.
that. You've got such an incredible mindset there. So, as we're wrapping up our conversation today, I would love it if you would give everyone that's watching, that's listening right now, including me, one challenge. What is one thing that you would challenge us all to do?
I would challenge everyone to try to do something active every day for 10 minutes. That's it. And from there, you can start building on it. And I promise that it'll build confidence. You'll feel better. You'll feel better in your own body and skin and mind, and it'll improve your life.
So, my final question to you, and this goes back to the way that you felt about yourself as a teenager. First, are you proud of yourself today? And secondly, are you good enough?
Yes, and yes. And I hope I don't sound cocky saying that, but
You
I've
don't.
done a lot of work to get to this point, and I feel great today.
Beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And Julie, I want to thank you so very much for joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat.
Appreciate it.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I know it's not going to be the last conversation we have. I can already tell that. And clearly, we just really began to scratch the surface here. There's a lot more depth to you as a human being, but I do appreciate you being here. And I just want you to know I'm grateful for you.
I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. And for all of you, I want to thank you so very much for tuning into Business Minds Coffee Chat. We will be back next Saturday morning at 8:30. And until then, my friends, keep learning and growing and definitely take Julie up on her challenge. I know I'm going to continue to do that and keep doing the work to reach your potential. Take care, everyone.